Why are the young losing humility when they have everything the old once prayed for? Information, wealth, opportunities, comfort, all within their palms, and yet their hearts tremble at the smallest discomfort. They walk like kings, but cry like children when the world does not obey their will. What went wrong? Where did wisdom slip away between generations? In the heart of an ancient monastery, hidden deep in the hills of Bodh Gaya, lived Elder Anand, a monk whose silence carried the echo of 1,000 lives. He had seen empires rise and crumble, seen disciples become masters, and masters fall into delusion. He had watched countless generations of seekers come through the monastery gates, some thirsty for truth, others only for recognition. But this generation was different. They bowed without devotion. They spoke without listening. They knew the scriptures, but not silence. Elder Anand, "They call it confidence," he said once, "but I call it the arrogance of forgetting who they are." One afternoon, as golden light poured into the courtyard, a group of young visitors arrived, university students on a mindfulness retreat. They wore branded robes, carried phones even into meditation, and whispered selfies beneath the Bodhi tree. Among them was Ravi, a brilliant but arrogant young man. 24 years old, sharp-tongued, quick-witted, and full of pride. He had read more books than he had lived moments. He believed meditation was a waste of time, and monks were escape artists from real life. To him, wisdom was just another concept to conquer. Ravi, "Tell me, Master, if all this silence is enlightenment, why hasn't it changed the world? Why are monks still poor, wars still happening, people still suffering?" Elder Anand, "Because silence changes you, not the world. And a world full of unchanged people cannot become peaceful, no matter how loud their prayers." Ravi, "So it's useless then. The world needs action, not more sitting." Elder Anand, "You speak of action, but what kind? Action born of ego is chaos. Action born of awareness is compassion." Ravi turned away, frustrated. He had come not for wisdom, but for argument, and found none that pleased his mind. Later that evening, as the sun dipped into orange silence, Elder Anand watched the young people gathered around their phones, laughing at videos, gossiping about followers and fame. He saw the same disease spreading through their smiles, disconnection, not from technology, but from their own being. They sought validation through numbers, not experience. They spoke to be heard, not to understand. Their eyes were full of light, but their hearts dim. That night, Elder Anand walked slowly to the Bodhi tree, his hands folded behind his back. He whispered to the silent stars, "When knowledge outpaces wisdom, arrogance is born. When achievement replaces gratitude, the world loses its balance." He closed his eyes. He could feel the restlessness of youth across the earth, the subtle vibration of minds addicted to self. Elder Anand knew this wasn't a new problem. It was ancient, as old as mankind's forgetfulness. In the Buddha's time, too, there were disciples who sought power through knowledge, not liberation through truth. And Buddha had said, "Arrogance is the armor of ignorance. The more tightly you wear it, the farther you are from peace." The next morning, Ravi was asked to join Elder Anand for a walk through the forest surrounding the monastery. He didn't want to, but curiosity made him follow. As they walked in silence, The monk asked Ravi, "Tell me, Ravi, when you look at the world, what do you see?" Ravi replied, "I see people trying to survive, to be someone." The monk nodded. "And when you look at yourself?" Ravi hesitated. I see someone who doesn't want to be ordinary." The monk stopped walking. He turned slowly towards Ravi and said, "That's where your suffering begins." Elder Anand, when you fear being ordinary, you stop being authentic. When you chase importance, you lose innocence. And arrogance is nothing more than a frightened child pretending to be invincible. Something in Ravi's heart stirred, just a little. He had never been spoken to like that, not with anger, not with superiority. The monk's words didn't attack, they unveiled. They walked further until they reached a small pond. The surface was still, a perfect mirror of the sky. Elder Anand motioned toward it. He said, "Look, what do you see?" Ravi replied, "My reflection." The monk bent down, picked up a small stone, and dropped it into the water. Ripples spread outward, distorting the reflection. Elder Anand said, "Now, what do you see?" Ravi said, "My face is gone." The monk nodded. That is the mind of arrogance, disturbed, reactive, noisy. It cannot see truth because it keeps throwing stones at its own peace. For the first time, Ravi said nothing. He looked down at the ripples and felt them within himself. The monk's words had entered him like seeds into soil, silent but alive. That night, as the world slept, Ravi lay awake under the roof of the monastery. He heard the chants echo through the holes, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat of eternity. And for the first time, he wondered if silence was not emptiness, but the voice of something he had long ignored. The next morning would change everything. For that night, Elder Anand decided the boy would not leave the monastery. He would teach him the truth not through words, but through awakening. And what began as a lesson on arrogance would soon become a journey through karma, dreams, and the forgotten wisdom of the soul.
The dawn broke softly over the ancient monastery. Mist curled around the Bodhi leaves like breath from the earth itself. The young students were still asleep, phones beside their pillows, screens still glowing faintly from midnight scrolling. But Ravi's, no incense, just stillness. Elder Anand, "You're early," he said, sensing Ravi's presence without opening his eyes. Ravi, "I couldn't sleep." Elder Anand, "Good. Sleeplessness born of confusion is the beginning of clarity. Sit." Ravi sat before him, legs crossed awkwardly, back stiff. The silence between them was heavy, not empty, but full of presence. Outside, birds sang their morning hymns. Minutes passed, no words, no movement, just breathing. And in that silence, Ravi began to notice. His mind was screaming. Thoughts, memories, plans, opinions, all spinning, clashing, demanding attention. He tried to control them. They became louder. He tried to ignore them. They became heavier. Finally, frustrated, he opened his eyes and said, "This is useless. My thoughts won't stop." Elder Anand, "They're not supposed to stop. The mind is a wild river. You don't stop it, you observe it. When you stop fighting your thoughts, you begin to see their source." Elder Anand stood and walked to the small pond outside the hall, the same one where he had shown Ravi his reflection. He motioned for Ravi to follow. He picked up a leaf and placed it gently on the water's surface. It floated peacefully, moving wherever the ripples carried it. Elder Anand: "This leaf does not resist, it flows. You must learn to be like this, unresisting, unattached." Ravi frowned. "But if we don't resist, we'll never achieve anything." Elder Anand: "Achievement without awareness is just motion without meaning. The Buddha achieved the highest state, not by conquering the world, but by surrendering the self." That night, something strange happened. As Ravi meditated again before sleep, his breath slowed, his body softened, and somewhere between waking and dreaming, he entered a state he could not explain. He saw himself walking through the monastery, but it was empty. The walls shimmered like light. The Bodhi tree glowed faintly in silver radiance. And there, under the tree, sat a young monk, radiant, calm, familiar. Ravi approached him and asked, "Who are you?" The monk smiled. "I am what you could be if you stopped pretending to know." "Your arrogance," the monk said, "is a wall built from fear. You fear insignificance, so you cover it with opinions. You fear emptiness, so you fill it with noise. But peace does not come from adding, it comes from removing." Ravi fell to his knees. "I want to remove it, but how?" The monk looked toward the moonlit sky. "Begin with humility. When you bow, truly bow, not your body, but your pride." The world around them began to dissolve into light, and the voice faded, whispering, "Wake up and listen." He sat upright, heart racing, sweat on his forehead. The room was silent, but deep inside, something had shifted. He didn't know what that vision meant, but he felt lighter, emptier, somehow more real. The next morning, he went to Elder Anand again. "Master, I saw someone in a dream. He told me to bow, not with my body, but with my pride." Elder Anand: "The universe has begun your lesson. Dreams are not illusions, Ravi. They are mirrors for the mind that refuses to look at itself while awake. Every thought, every emotion, every action you perform, they ripple across time. What you call dreams are just the echoes of karma whispering back." Ravi looked confused. "Ravi, karma? You mean destiny?" "No, karma is not fate. It is the pattern of your mind repeated until you awaken. Each arrogant word, each selfish act, each unkind thought, they create a vibration that returns again and again until compassion replaces ignorance. The dream was your karma's way of knocking." Ravi sat silently, processing. The air between them felt sacred, like truth had entered the space. That evening, as they walked near the village, they saw an old farmer carrying a broken pot, leaking water all the way down the trail. Ravi offered to fix it, but the old man smiled and said, "I never fix it. Every day the water that leaks feeds the flowers by the road." Ravi froze. In those words, he heard something that pierced his ego once more. He realized that not everything broken needs repair. Some things serve their purpose by being imperfect. That night, as Elder Anand spoke to the young disciples, he said, "The wise do not fear aging or failure, because they have nothing to prove. Arrogance is born from comparison. Humility is born from awareness. He looked at Ravi. When the river of youth slows into the stream of age, those who learned humility will still flow. The rest will dry in their pride. Days turned into weeks. Ravi began waking before dawn, meditating longer, listening more. The old arrogance didn't vanish overnight, but it started losing power. He began serving the monks, cleaning, cooking, fetching water. At first, it felt humiliating, but then he noticed something strange. Each act of service made him lighter. Each bow made him freer. Elder Anand never praised him, but his eyes softened whenever he passed. One evening, as they sat beneath the Bodhi tree, Elder Anand said, "Ravi, tell me, what have you learned?" Ravi, that silence is louder than words, that serving others heals the self, and that arrogance hides fear. Elder Anand, good. Then you are ready to understand what most never do. The body ages, the mind resists, but the spirit, it only grows wiser. You feared being ordinary, but in ordinariness lies the doorway to the extraordinary. When you stop trying to shine, you begin to radiate. Ravi bowed deeply, this time not to impress, not to seek approval, but in true surrender. And as he bowed, the Bodhi leaves trembled softly, as though the universe itself was blessing that moment of awakening. For the first time in his life, Ravi wasn't trying to be someone. He was simply being. And in that simple being, the arrogance that once clouded him dissolved like mist in morning light. Elder Anand's words echo still, not just in that monastery, but in every restless soul seeking importance in a world that worships noise. When you forget humility, you forget humanity. And when you lose humanity, even success feels empty. So ask yourself, are you chasing greatness or peace? Because one will exhaust you, and the other will set you free.
Seasons passed. The once restless boy became a calm presence in the monastery, no longer loud, no longer trying to impress, but still like a lake that had finally learned to rest. Elder Anand had grown frailer now. His steps were slower, his eyes deeper, but his smile carried the peace of 10,000 suns. And one quiet evening, as the sky burned with shades of gold and crimson, he called Ravi to sit beside him under the Bodhi tree. Elder Anand, Ravi, tell me, what do you fear now? Ravi, I used to fear insignificance. Now I fear losing you. Elder Anand, you cannot lose what has become part of you. When a candle lights another, the first does not lose its flame. The old monk's words hung in the air like sacred incense. Ravi felt something rise in his chest, grief, love, devotion, all at once. For years he had thought wisdom meant control. Now, watching his master's trembling hands, he understood that wisdom was surrender. Elder Anand, the body will wrinkle, the hair will gray, but a bodhisattva does not age, he unfolds. Do you see this tree? Each scar, each twisted root is not decay, it's memory. It does not fight age, it honors it. The arrogant cling to youth because they fear losing their mask. But those who awaken, they wear time like prayer beads, each moment a mantra of experience. Ravi listened, his eyes wet. He wanted to say something, but Elder Anand raised his hand gently. Elder Anand, do not speak. Just listen to the silence between our breaths. That silence is where truth lives.
Time seemed to stop. In that stillness, Ravi felt everything: the sound of his heartbeat, the whisper of the wind, the pulse of the earth. He saw visions again, but this time they were not dreams. They were memories from lives long gone. He saw himself, not as Ravi, but as a soldier, a scholar, a beggar, a monk. Countless lives chasing recognition, validation, and love, and in each one he failed to see that the seeker and the sought were always the same. A tear rolled down his cheek as he whispered, "Now I see. I was never learning from you, Master. I was remembering." Elder Anand. And now you remember who you truly are. The old monk's breathing slowed. Ravi held his hand, trembling. The sun dipped below the mountains, painting everything in orange and gold. Elder Anand's final words floated like feathers on the breeze. When you serve without self, when you love without wanting, when you speak without pride, you become timeless. And then the silence deepened. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of completion. Ravi bowed deeply, this time with tears falling freely, each tear shining in the fading light. He whispered, "Thank you for teaching me how to live and how to let go." The next morning, the monks gathered under the Bodhi tree. Elder Anand's body rested in peace, his face serene, untouched by time. But the tree above him shimmered softly, its leaves glowing faintly in the morning sun. And there in the branches, a single leaf drifted down, landing gently in Ravi's open palm. He smiled through his tears, for he understood now. The Bodhisattva does not leave. He becomes the breath of all who listen, the silence in every act of kindness, the stillness behind every heart that wakes up. Ravi. I no longer chase youth or recognition. The arrogance I once wore has turned into gratitude. I bow now to life, to its impermanence, its beauty, its fleeting light. The Bodhisattva Path is not about renouncing the world. It's about embracing it fully, without losing your center. We age not because time takes from us, but because life keeps teaching us. And if we listen deeply enough, aging becomes awakening. So to every restless soul who fears growing older, to every heart that feels unseen, remember this: arrogance isolates you. Humility connects you. And connection, that's what makes a life beautiful. Be like the leaf that falls but feeds the earth. Be like the elder who walks slower but sees deeper. Be like the Bodhisattva who ages gracefully because he has already transcended time. Share this light if something in you awakened today.
If these words touched something deep inside you, pause for a moment, breathe, feel the stillness within your chest. Because maybe this story didn't just speak to your ears, it spoke to your soul. Arrogance, pride, the noise of youth, they fade. But what remains is awareness, compassion, light. So, if even for a moment you remembered who you truly are, share this light. Let it reach someone who's forgotten the beauty of humility, someone who's still lost in the noise. And when you share, don't just share a video, share a moment of awakening. Because the world doesn't need more opinions. It needs more peace.
Until we meet again under the Bodhi tree, walk gently, speak truthfully, and age gracefully. Share this light if it awakened something in you.